The city never truly sleeps, but Luke needed to. For years, the endless hum of traffic and the neon glow of New York had filled his mind. So he packed a single suitcase, took his old car, and drove northwest towards the ancient forests of Washington state. The transition from concrete to green was gradual, but as the towering pine trees began to line the empty highway, Luke felt a weight lifting from his chest. It was late afternoon when he finally turned onto the dirt road leading to Silverlake. The air here smelled different, thick with the scent of damp earth, pine needles, and fresh rain. Deep in the woods sat the cabin. It was made of dark, weathered logwood, with a stone chimney that had seen decades of winters. The porch overlooked a perfectly still lake, which reflected the gray, overcast sky like a giant mirror. Luke stepped out of the car. The only sound was the crunch of gravel beneath his boots and the distant, soft call of an owl. He unlocked the heavy wooden door. Inside, it was cozy. A dust-covered rocking chair sat by the fireplace, and the shelves were lined with old, leather-bound books. He knew at that very moment that this was exactly where he belonged for the next few weeks. He built a fire, watching the orange flames dance and cast long shadows on the wooden walls, completely isolated from the rest of the world. The first night in the cabin was the quietest Luke had ever experienced. The next morning, a thick blanket of fog had rolled over the lake, making the world outside look like a painting. Luke made a hot cup of coffee and sat at the heavy oak table near the window. As he rested his hands on the wooden surface, he noticed something unusual. One of the wooden panels on the side of the table seemed loose. Curiosity taking over, he gently pushed it. With a soft click, a hidden drawer slid open. Inside lay an old notebook, its pages yellowed with age, tied together with a faded piece of leather string. It wasn't a published book. It was a handwritten journal belonging to someone named Arthur, dated 40 years ago. Luke opened the first page. The handwriting was elegant, yet shaky. "To whoever finds this," the note read, "Silverlake is not just water and trees. If you listen closely at midnight, the forest tells a story. Follow the path where the silver ferns grow, and you will find what the city can never give you." Luke smiled, thinking it was just the romantic thoughts of an old caretaker. But as he looked out at the misty woods, a strange sense of adventure sparked inside him. The forest was no longer just a place to sleep. It was a mystery waiting to be unveiled. Determined to find the path mentioned in Arthur's journal, Luke put on his jacket and stepped outside. The fog was beginning to lift, letting thin beams of golden sunlight pierce through the thick canopy of trees. He walked past the edge of the lake, where the water was so clear he could see the smooth stones at the bottom. According to the journal, the path began behind the old woodshed. True enough, hidden behind overgrown wild bushes was a faint, narrow trail. As Luke walked deeper into the woods, the sounds of the modern world completely vanished. Here, nature ruled. The trees were massive, their trunks covered in soft, green moss. After an hour of peaceful walking, the vegetation changed. The ground became carpeted with a unique kind of plant, ferns that caught the sunlight and glowed with a distinct silvery hue. It was breathtaking. The air felt cooler here, almost magical. Luke followed the silver trail until it led him to a hidden clearing. In the center of the clearing was a small, natural stone fountain from which crystal-clear water bubbled up gently. Next to the fountain sat a wooden bench, carved directly from a fallen tree. On the back of the bench, a small sentence was carved. "Rest here, traveler, and leave your worries behind." Luke sat on the carved wooden bench for what felt like hours. The gentle bubbling of the stone fountain was the only sound, creating a rhythm that seemed to slow down his own heartbeat. He took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp, clean air of the hidden clearing. For the first time in years, the constant mental noise of his city life was completely gone. He opened Arthur's journal again to the next entry. It described this very spot. Arthur wrote, "The fountain is where the forest breathes. If you stay until the sun begins to dip, the wind passing through the valley creates a melody. It is the music of the mountain." Luke looked up at the sky. The golden afternoon light was softening, turning into a warm, amber glow. Right on cue, a gentle breeze swept through the clearing. As it passed through the tops of the massive pine trees and the hollows of the nearby cliffs, it produced a low, hauntingly beautiful whistling sound. It sounded almost like a flute played by an unseen musician. Luke closed his eyes, letting the natural symphony wash over him. He realized that this forest wasn't just a collection of trees, it was a living, breathing sanctuary. The sun was setting, casting long purple shadows, and it was time to head back. But Luke knew he would return to this magical clearing. By the time Luke returned to the cabin, night had fully fallen. The sky above Silverlake was a deep, velvet black, completely covered with a brilliant sea of stars, a sight he could never see through the smog of New York. He turned off the cabin's electric lights, preferring the soft, warm glow of the fireplace and a single candle on the table. Remembering Arthur's words about midnight, Luke wrapped a warm blanket around his shoulders and stepped out onto the wooden porch. The air was cold, making his breath visible in the moonlight. The lake was perfectly still, acting as a flawless mirror to the cosmos above. It felt as though he was standing between two identical universes of stars. As the old grandfather clock inside the cabin struck 12, a strange phenomenon occurred. A soft, glowing mist began to rise from the surface of the water. It didn't look like ordinary fog. It seemed to shimmer under the starlight. Luke watched in absolute awe as the mist slowly drifted toward the shore, bringing with it a deep, comforting silence. It was as if the entire world had paused to take a collective breath. In that moment of absolute stillness, Luke understood what the journal meant. The peace he was looking for wasn't something to find, it was something to surrender to. The next morning brought a bright, warm sunlight that chased away the shadows of the night. Luke sat by the fireplace with the final pages of the journal. He had come to feel a deep connection with Arthur, the mysterious writer from 40 years ago. The last entry was written in a calm, peaceful hand. "If you have followed the silver ferns, heard the wind's melody, and watched the midnight mist, then you are now the keeper of Silverlake," the journal read. "This place belongs to those who need to heal. Take this peace with you back to your world, but leave the cabin ready for the next weary traveler." Luke closed the book, a profound sense of gratitude filling his heart. He realized he didn't need to stay in the woods forever to keep this feeling alive. He spent the rest of his days at the cabin exploring new trails, fishing in the crystal lake, and reading by the fire. When his vacation finally ended, he cleaned the cabin meticulously. He placed the journal back into the hidden drawer of the oak table, leaving it slightly open, just enough for the next guest to notice. As he drove away down the gravel road, looking back at the misty cabin one last time, Luke smiled. He was returning to the city, but a piece of his soul would forever remain in the quiet, whispering woods of Silverlake.